Hello and welcome to our show. This is a show dedicated to helping you and your family grow up healthy, safe, and strong. Tonight, we focused on the youngest family members, infants and newborns. You know those cute sounds they make and maybe some of the not so cute ones? That's actually them communicating to you. And how you react could determine their future growth and development. We have two guests tonight that are going to help explain what I just said. Welcome, Kelly Pierce-Pineda. You're a licensed family and marriage therapist and an infant mental health specialist. And Jackie Munez, you're a program director with the Children's Services Council. Welcome to you both. Now, Jackie, what I said, some people may be thinking, huh? Because I was when you first told me. And you were kind enough to share some Harvard research in their Child Development Center video that kind of set it up a little better than I probably did. Let's take a look at that and then we'll talk about it.
The social challenges that face modern societies, whether it's the ability to work productively, to be a good citizen, stay healthy, have their roots in early health and development. A strong foundation in early childhood results in much better and more effective development later. A weak foundation really puts us behind. The most important thing children need to thrive is to live in an environment of relationships that begins in their family, but also extends out to include adults who are family members in child care centers and other programs. What children need is for that entire environment of relationships to be invested in their healthy development.
So Jackie, invested in their healthy development, that's just what Children's Services Council does, is invest in the healthy development of the youngest, on up. What does that mean when parents and the child care workers should be invested in healthy development?
Well, Dr. Shonkoff was talking about this idea of laying the foundation, and the foundation comes from those early relationships and the type of relationship that you have with your child, or the types of relationships that child care providers have with the child. It needs to be of a certain quality. A child needs to feel safe. It has to be trusting. And those are things, what I love about it is that those things don't cost money, so it's singing to your child, reading to your child, telling your child stories. But sometimes, the way Dr. Shonkoff described in the video, there's so much going on in the world, and parents get caught up in that, and we forget about those little things and how important it is, that one-on-one interaction with your child. That's what's really going to prompt development, and make it healthy. And Kelly can talk a little bit more about
Kelly, I wanted to ask you, infant mental health. Infant is the thing that kind of wowed me, because in a minute we'll see a story that a 5-6-week-old is actually communicating with her parents, with things that I don't think as a mom 19 years ago I would have noticed. Talk about that.
Absolutely. We learn so much from watching newborns and their ability to really communicate with us, whether they're making sounds, and they just have the ability to regulate their states so beautifully. It's just from a biological standpoint. But what we learn from watching them is that they're actually communicating with us through cues. And so what we want to try to help parents do is recognize the cues in their children as early as when they're newborns. When they're crying, what does the crying mean? When they're looking away, what does that mean? It's information and it's meaning. So we really want to look at that.
And I may sound ignorant, and I don't know how people watching feel, but how long have we known this? Because I had my first child 20 years ago, and I was told, like a lot of moms, let him cry. If you pick him up every time, he'll be spoiled. So is this a newer theory on what the Children's Services Councils, a lot of the programs are based on, or is it just no one realized it before?
I think it's just the information isn't out there. Dr. T. Barry Brazelton, world-renowned pediatrician and child development expert, he was fascinated by the child's development, and he was really and engaged in how that child was trying to communicate with him. And so he talks about wanting to get into their brains. What is it like? And what he found was if he observes behavior with the parent, they can kind of figure out together, what does that behavior mean to the parent? And then him knowing because of his expertise, what it means, they can have a conversation about it. So for instance, a baby crying, you know, there may be a certain cry where that maybe the baby is hungry, but to the mom doesn't know what that cry is, or dad doesn't know what that cry is. So really talking to the parent and the parent sharing what that cry means to them, then you can have a conversation about that. And little by little, a parent starts to gain a little bit more confidence and that they can meet their child's needs. And it's the child's behavior, so it's their body language, their eyes. Kelly had mentioned, you know, if a child looks away, what does that mean to the parent? One parent may think, you know, oh, he doesn't really want to engage with me, he doesn't like me. But in reality, maybe that baby is just taking a little pause, you know, I just need a little break. This was too much interaction for me. I just need that little pause and then I can come back to you. When we start to look at a baby that way, a parent will say, wow, you know, I don't need instructions. My baby is actually telling me. And your response to the baby makes them feel more successful. Wow, my mom is responding to me. My dad knows what I need. And that's how you start to build that trusting relationship.
And I think that what you said is really the basis of the touch points that you at the Children's Services Councils provides training to providers. So that's nurses who go and work with doctors, pediatrician offices, people like Kelly, you know, people who will touch your baby, so to speak, outside of the parents. We were able to see one of these interactions. It is absolutely amazing. Take a look.
Like many first-time parents, Ray and Megan Dolan are learning a new way of life.
At first it was very overwhelming, but exciting to know that, you know, we had this little baby. It's so surprising, like, oh, we have a baby. But everything seems like an adventure, and sometimes it's a scary adventure, a fun adventure, just learning to get out of the house and in a reasonable amount of time is a task.
The couple began their new roles as mom and dad. They wanted to do all they could to learn more about their baby. So they got some expert help.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you? Come in.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Have a good morning already?
Yes.
Just getting started.
Yes, definitely.
Jackie Adamas knows all about newborns. She is a nurse that is trained in touch points, which are universal spurts of development in all babies. She trains others who work with children and also helps parents recognize these important milestones.
This is an encounter with a family where we're looking at behavior that reflects their development and the developmental stage that they're in. And it's important to know that for parents to observe the behavior, because the behavior are really cues that babies are giving to the parents. And they help caregiving. They help the parents know, what does this baby need now based on what I see.
The Dolans are going to get a brief encounter with their 5-week-old Allison.
So I was wondering if I could hold her for a minute. Is it okay if I take a look at her?
Absolutely.
And see what she wants to tell us. I'd like to do a couple of things to show you what Allison wants to tell us about herself. One of the things that we look at is just their behavior and how she just kind of adapts to her environment. Do you notice she's in this state a lot, just kind of moving around? Yeah.
Very observant.
Very observant, yeah. There's some things that babies do to let us know when they're stressed with their environment. Sometimes their skin changes, gets a little mottly, and if she gets a little stressed, she gives you a little cue, like, this is too much for me. What does she do?
She will definitely vocalize her needs. Mm-hmm. So when she has to have her diaper changed, she'll do a high, like, screech.
So it's a different cry.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there are different behavior patterns that babies have that tell us a little bit about them. And so Allison is just engaging, I think, with us. What do you think?
Absolutely,
Yeah,
she is.
she's moving around. She's engaging now the other side of this room here. She's taking in just what you said, Dad, some of the lights and the fan. And so you see her using her hands here? Have you noticed she uses her fists more lately? Has she been using her hands? Mm-hmm. There she is. So when babies get a little stressed, if they get too overstimulated, they use their hands as a way to soothe themselves. And she did that beautifully when I changed her position. She just took her hands and put them in her mouth. And she said, this helps me.
Jackie says newborn Allison is exhibiting all the typical behaviors of a 5-week-old. Mom and Dad are thrilled with what they've learned.
I think that energy I put out to her, more calming, more relaxed, heartbeats nice and slow breathing, really helps her. I've noticed that it helps keep her calm.
I know that she's communicating with me, and she wants me to communicate back with her, and I think it makes the transition a lot easier, and it's going to really help us both grow in our relationship with each other.
It may seem like a simple set of small tests, but Jackie says knowing what to look for in your baby can help in years to come.
And that whole first year of a baby's life is all about really attaching. And a secure attachment is going to give you social emotional wellness for the rest of their life.
Our new mom agrees.
Once I was consulted, and helped and guided through this, it made the transition a lot easier. Just in a day of learning something new from Jackie, it's helped tremendously through the weeks, through the hard weeks. The 3 weeks is a hard transition, and to move into week 5, I already see a significant difference.
So Kelly, this is your expertise, infant mental health development. What we saw, to me as a mom, was just really interesting, and I hadn't seen something like that before. That's kind of what you were mentioning before, watching for the cues of the turning away and the quietness when she was confident with her daddy. Is that kind of what we're talking about when we talk about bonding? Is that something different? Explain what we saw.
Okay, well, when we think about bonding, it's really about the parents falling in love with the child, the parent's relationship or sense of relationship they're having with the child and the infant. Because it's a newborn, there's not a lot of bi-directional. It's more one-directional. So we're thinking about the parent falling in love. When we think about attachment, it's more of a relationship built over time. So it's a bi-directional relationship, and we're seeing that serve and return. So whether the parents are looking at the child and the child looks back, or the child looks away, but the parent understands the cue that maybe the child needs something else. They need a break from the interaction. So really responding in a nurturing and sensitive way.
And when you say attachment, I know we saw the little different exercises, I would call them, in that video. Is the attachment the important piece that we hear about in the Harvard research and that all the decades of study have done that, confirm how that child is going to be in the future, like in school, with trusting and emotions and being able to, cope with their different feelings? Is that what we're looking for, healthy attachment, Jackie?
Right. Kelly, do you want to share a little bit more about what secure attachment looks like?
Right, sure. So secure attachment is attachment that looks like the child feels safe. The child feels okay to express themselves, to be able to explore their environment. Children learn through exploring. And we know that when a child feels safe, they can go out and explore their environment and know that their parent or that caregiver is there and is holding that space for them. So we think of the idea of that secure base, kind of like when you're a kid and you're playing tag and you're being chased and you go and you tag home base, knowing that person's there. But it's also going a step further, being available emotionally. That's the other part, that safe haven. So you like the idea that the child feels supported in their feelings, that when they're angry, they're able to express it, and that the parent or the caregiver can help them express it in a way that's going to be safe. And also, whatever they're feeling, that they're validated, so they start to feel confident and competent in their self-esteem.
And all of this that you're talking about, I think of, kindergarten. No, you're talking about a baby as young as that sweet little girl we just saw, who was, I think, almost 6 weeks old when we met her, so that the real interesting part is, even at that age, 5 or 6 weeks, brain development is occurring on the healthy attachment you're talking about. I know, Jackie, you had, again, sent me a lot of information that was great on how, because for me, that took me aback. Brain development on how you're reacting to the crying or the kicking and, flaying. So let's look at this video, and then I want you to talk kind of about how that impacts what Children's Services Council is doing.
A child's experiences during the earliest years of life have a lasting impact on the architecture of the developing brain. Genes provide the basic blueprint, but experiences shape the process that determines whether a child's brain will provide a strong or weak foundation for all future learning, behavior, and health. During this important period of brain development, billions of brain cells called neurons send electrical signals to communicate with each other. These connections form circuits that become the basic foundation of brain architecture. Circuits and connections proliferate at a rapid pace and are reinforced through repeated use. Our experiences and environment dictate which circuits and connections get more use. Connections that are used more grow stronger and more permanent. Meanwhile, connections that are used less fade away through a normal process called pruning.
So that video really kind of put it in a visual explanation that we can all understand. Those little synapses are made with healthy attachment, like Kelly was talking about. Is that the focus of a lot of what you do at Children's Services Council, a lot of the programs that you do with the providers?
Yes, so we have what our department is called the Provider Professional Development Department. And in that department, what we do is we look at all of the competencies that we feel would be beneficial to our providers in order to support healthy development of the parent and even of the child, because we're also talking about parallel development. So the parent is developing alongside their child. So how do we support that parent so they, in a sense, can then support their child? So we model it for them. So what we do in, for instance, one of our trainings that we feel is the foundation for how all providers should be with families is our touch points training. And touch points is based on, we call it a universal framework. We look at child development, and then child development in the context of relationships. So that's what we're looking at. So when we go into a home, similar to what we saw in that interaction, so Jackie was going in, and she was giving a very good example of how we take our knowledge about child development and how we use this one thing that we both have in common is this child. We both want the best for this child, so we're coming in and we start to observe behavior of the child with the parent. And what we're doing is, I'm not coming in as the expert provider, I know all of these things, but I want to know what you know about your child. And then if you need support along, for something specific, then we can talk about that. But that's the way we want our providers to be with our families. What we teach them is always observe the parent-child relationship, right. Always, because there are times where there's going to be what we call a rupture in the relationship. We can't always have that perfect relationship, so there's a rupture, but can they come back? Can they come back and be secure in their relationship? If we see that over time, the parents saying, okay, my baby doesn't like me, there's something, then those are the times when we can kind of intervene. So that early prevention that we do with our programs is so important. But we're teaching our providers the knowledge about the importance of social emotional development because it impacts all other development, and we're teaching them what do you need to be observing when you go into the home. And then so that's touch points training, and I love our infant mental health training. We call it advanced touch points, and Kelly is also a touch points trainer with me, so she goes ahead and goes in depth into relate more about the relationships and social emotional development and why that's important.
So let me ask you this, Kelly, if you're going more in depth, how do most parents react to all this that Jackie is talking about? Because I react as, I wish I would have known that. These parents are lucky enough to know it. Are they embracing it? And do you notice a quick learning curve where they get it and then the next time you meet with them or you see them, the interaction is even better than the first?
Yes, well, what we want to do is help support the parents to realize that they already have the tools and they are the expert on their child. So we're not exactly sharing the information directly with them.
Right.
It's in the approach that we take with the families. So by supporting them and giving them these ideas that, they know their child best and what are they already doing that's working well, and let's think together and how we can co-facilitate some things that can maybe help the behavior look differently for them. So they're really responding, I think, to feeling supported. They're feeling responded to, they're feeling that we are helping to understand what they're looking at, that what they're seeing in their child, that we're saying, yes, we understand your concerns. So just validating them as well.
And I would say we keep talking about parents, but we're also talking about providers, which are, caretakers, they're nurses, they're pediatricians, but do you also see that it helps with all interactions with that newborn or child, whether it be an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent? I mean, wouldn't that kind of extend if the parent is feeling more confident, maybe they're sharing this information with the other family members that are interacting with the child?
Yes. Yeah, so one of the things that we look at in touch points training too is what we call our systems theory. So the child is at the center, and then who are all the people that surround that child, and what kind of relationships do they have, you know? So it's really important for us as providers going in, understanding that child's system so that we can interact maybe with that child care provider if we need to, you know, with the parent. Maybe it's the mother-in-law who sits there, and maybe she's judgmental on how mom is doing.
Right.
Well, we see that interaction between them, and then what we need to do is come alongside that parent and say, you know what, you got this, you know. So that's what we want, but we need to be able to understand all the relationships within that child's system, and that's what we do.
And the whole, what I would call the whole family theory, or that's my terminology.
Exactly. It's a perfect one.
It seems like it would be common sense, but you know, family interaction can be either healthy or detrimental. We all know. Is there some pushback sometimes because you know, family members, like you said, grandparents who may be watching are thinking, I let him cry and he's just fine. So this I don't understand. You know, how do you work through that and make the parent feel confident that their feeling is okay, even though they may not have been raised that way?
Right.
Anyone, everyone.
I think it takes time to. I was that parent who was not confident at all, and so you know, I would have loved to have someone like Kelly come alongside me, right? We talked about this, right?
Yes.
To come alongside me and say, you know what you are doing is okay. So it's okay for us to hear what maybe, you know, our mother-in-law has to say, or even our mom, you know. It's okay, and we take that in, but how is your baby responding to you? That's what we try to, almost like training the parent to say, you know, look at your baby, you know, how you respond, is it making a difference? And if it is, then you got
doing
this.
right.
You're doing it okay.
So Kelly, we've heard a lot of positive things, especially to the lucky parents who get this information when their baby's not even born in just the first few weeks. What if they are watching, like grandparents may be watching, moms may be watching and saying, oh, I didn't know that, and my little girl's 2, my little boy's 3. Is it ever too late to use this information to have a healthy attachment there for a great child growing up?
No, it's never too late. And what we want to just emphasize that it's really all about the relationship at any age. We want to try to just nurture that relationship and provide a safe and stable environment. Routines, predictability, rituals are really important in trying to provide that environment for the child that they can count on. And it's never too late. Children are resilient. And you know, it is, early intervention is what we want to focus on, because we know so much now about the research with brain development and how the parents can be really the best supporters of healthy brain development, or any caregiver that's, you know, nurturing and kind and responsive. So knowing that, moving forward, we want to help to educate parents and also grandparents, because they're very important in the roles of the children. So,
Very, and I like that you brought up the grandparents, and that's why I was bringing it up, because I think people forget that that's a wealth of knowledge sitting there, and you know, and there's such a big impact on not only the child but the parents. So that's why I was asking you, you know, do grandparents get involved in this kind of development?
Definitely. And I think just like when we watched the video and we said, oh, I wish we would have known this, it's probably the same reaction that they get. But you know what? It's not too late. You know, jump in there and interact with that baby, you know? Yeah.
And truthfully, the grandparents I've met lately, they say they love spoiling their child, which spoiling to them, I think, is holding the baby more than they held their own child. You know, maybe coddling him a little more. So hopefully that is, you know, a positive aspect of the spoiling, as they might call it, right? Yeah. So you've, Jackie, been with Children's Service Council for years. Do you see a change in a parent? Because I know you've been able to follow these stories, so to speak. You've seen positive outcomes of these children that maybe you've seen it, you know, 1 or so, and now they're 5, 6?
Well, we actually followed a few families several years ago, from prenatal to some of them are now 5. And I'll never forget the time, and I love when dads are involved in the interaction.
Yeah, I loved
like
in the story. That was awesome.
But what's amazing is when you make a connection, especially with a dad around the baby, what you get is just so amazing. And one of these interactions that we had, the nurse was showing the competencies of the newborn, and he says, "Wow, I didn't know I had the deluxe bottle," you know, and it just made us all laugh, but it's like he didn't know, and he was just paying so much more attention to the baby and how they interact. And so when we saw them over the two-year period of time, you can just see how things have changed, and even their comments to us about what they saw in their baby or their confidence level. It was completely, I don't know if it would have been different had we not been in there, but we saw the difference in from prenatal to how confident they were. And was that a result of us intervening? You know, I don't know. I'd like to think that is, but hopefully we modeled something for them that they can carry with them through, you know, the rest of their lives.
And that child, according to all of the Children's Services Council's impact reports and evidence-based, you know, reports, will do better forever. It means better in school, not, you know, struggling in emotional relationships, succeed in stressful environments. So this is all so amazing to me. I wish we had more time, but Children's Services Council does have lots of information. We're going to put that number on the screen. They're available 24/7. It'll give you information where you can turn. Thank you so much, Kelly.
welcome.
Truthfully, this is so interesting as a mom to me. And thank you, Jackie.
Thank you, Toni.
And thank you for joining us. Again, if you'd like any more information, the number's on your screen. You can also email us at wxcl.org. Thank you so much. We'll see you again next time on Growing Up Strong.
Early childhood development, prenatal through age 5, builds the foundations of a child's brain architecture. This is a time of a child's most rapid cognitive, linguistic, social, emotional, and motor development. It's also a time to learn self-control, a vital skill for school readiness. A child's brain development is not set in stone at birth. A child's brain connections thrive when in a safe, loving home, or they can wither in an abusive or neglectful one. By age 2 to 3, a child's brain grows to about 80% of its adult size, and by age 5, it's reached 90%. By age 2, children whose primary caregiver frequently speak directly to them know about 300 more words than children whose caregivers rarely speak to them. That is why Children's Services Council supports programs that promote children's brain development. These programs provide information and resources to parents, caregivers, and the community at large so they know how to interact with children to stimulate their brains. This ensures more children will be eager and ready to learn when they enter school, a key indicator of future school success.